So hey there, YouTube. We're jumping in real quick. We just got done looking at this amazing footage from David Attenborough, showing what a violent implosion looks like. I should show this to YouTube real quick. Sorry about this, but they're testing the integrity. You know, they're testing probably some new manufacturing technique or some new, combination of metals, and they're testing it, seeing, okay, how much pressure can it take? So this is 2,000 meters of pressure. As you can see here, that is what a violent implosion looks like. It is not happy times, but you're not going to be suffering either. This really is. I mean, this man who built this sub and sent these people down there with him, he really is the new face of hubris. And I don't mean to spit on the man, on his grave here. But I am going to point out some obvious problems with this entrepreneur mindset. With that said, the left is absolutely dancing on his grave and, some rich guys died and all that. That's totally wildly inappropriate. We're not here to dance on anybody's grave. Yeah, that is a sad anime. A lot of the cool characters in that die. Yeah, one of the billionaire's 19-year-old son. He was 19. He was 19. And apparently, according to his aunt, I don't have the link here. There's too many links to keep up with, but I was reading the story throughout the day. And according to his aunt that was speaking to her nephew, the 19-year-old that was in the sub, he didn't really want to go, didn't really fucking care about the Titanic. His dad cared about the Titanic. He didn't want to disappoint his dad. He was actually very scared. So I'm glad he didn't suffer. I'm sure in the back of your mind, you were thinking, what does Jake Tapper have to think about this? So let's dive in. Find out what Tapper Jake has to say. Refuse to accept a sad ending and consider a fan ending where they be smasher and go to the moon together. Okay, Unsatiable. There is something to be said with living in reality. One should try to do that once in a while. I wanted to try diving, but I read about there's a lot that can go wrong. I have a wife and I don't. Well, look at the man. I mean, just look at the man. He looks like he goes to sleep in a silicone mold. Like standing up. Engage sleep mode. Just this silicone mold covers his body, right? He has to work out. I mean, look at that body, man. It's not Adonis under there, but he's kept together.
World lead and the
He better be. He's on TV fucking 600 hours a day. Shit, you can't turn on the fucking TV without seeing this fucking man's face, so he better be looking good.
bad
Jesus.
news in that search for the missing sub. The Coast Guard now says debris was found on the sea floor after a, quote, catastrophic implosion. Before this news, CNN spoke to a former subcontractor who worked on developing the sub, and the subcontractor told CNN
Right on cue.
that
Here
some of the
comes a phone
construction
call.
materials and design choices were considered controversial when the vessel was being built in 2018.
Hello?
CNN's Veronica Miracle joins us now live from Everett, Washington, where Ocean Gate is headquartered. And Veronica, why exactly were these choices controversial at the time?
Well, Jake, DJ Vernig, that subcontractor who was actually part of the development and the testing of the Titan here in Everett, Washington back in 2018, tells me that these materials and the design choices that they used were controversial, not because they were innovative, but because they were not tried and true methods. He tells me they were also working very quickly to develop this submersible. He said what they were trying to accomplish was to create a lightweight submersible that could fit a lot of people. And one of the decisions they made was to use carbon fiber for the hull. Now, he said this is not a conventional application of that material. A conventional application would be like on an airplane, and the material is under tension. But in a submersible, it is under pressure, the exact opposite force. And there's not a lot of testing around this. Here's what else he had to say about it.
They created a pressure hull and took it to Woods Hole Institute and subjected it to the pressures that you would find at depth were tiny.
So remember what we saw at the beginning? That was a steel ball. This genius over here thought he could disrupt the industry and make something appropriate out of carbon fiber. And a lot of people told him not the best idea. And he wanted to disrupt. He wanted to disrupt the industry. You know, he wanted to disrupt this whole situation. Cut through the red tape. Shut the fuck up, nerd. I shouldn't. I don't want to dance on this man's grave. He has been dead for several days, though. But, I mean, really just peak hubris. You know, this Elon Musk style mentality of, you know, I know better because I have a boatload of money, right? So I'm on top. I know what I'm doing. Let me just shake this industry up real quick, and then I'll hop on to my next adventure kind of mentality. You know, it drives humanity forward. It absolutely does. But, you know, it's also a double-edged sword, right? And you got to watch out for the hucksters and the confidence men that are maybe buying too much of their own bullshit. You can't be. You saw that ball. You saw that ball implode on itself, right? That was a steel sphere, right? One of the strongest structures known to man. You know, the most strongest reinforced structure is what? Not a. I don't know if it's not a sphere, but I think that's what a geodesic dome is. That one of the most strongest structures we could possibly create. Either way, folks, you have to make this container extremely durable.
Titanic is, and it passed.
A triangle, is that the strongest structure? Is the triangle? Yeah, okay. But a sphere is not, you know, a steel sphere is no joke either. But yeah, that's probably why we see such strange shapes, you know, when you're looking at these deep water submersibles, right? They're not standard shapes because they have to withstand incredible pressure.
But then the question is, well, if you do that repeatedly, then what happens? So these are the sorts of questions that if you have a long research and development program, you start answering. But if you really are pushing the envelope, there's no time to, you know, you're answering those questions in real time.
Yeah, so basically he you know, didn't do enough testing and got some people killed, you know. And this kind of reminds me of the old school days, you know, testing out combustion engines and testing out, you know, flight, right? These, you know, eccentric, you know, rich guys just, you know, building some crazy contraption that falls apart, you know. Obviously, that's not the case here. Apparently, this guy had input from NASA. He had, you know, he did tests, he did prototypes. You know, there were a lot of people interested, but there were also a lot of people saying, you know, he's dipping. Apparently, there was some criticism within this, you know, niche. It's super niche, like, you know, because it's like it takes hundreds of millions of dollars to even build one of these things. So only billionaires even get involved in it, or scientific organizations, right? But you know, there were apparently some criticism within that group of like, hey, you're rushing too quickly into commercialization. You're not doing enough tests. And this is why. And what they should have done, obviously, is, you know, longer term tests. Apparently it's made, you know, 20, 25 voyages, this vessel. So there were, you know, and it doesn't take any, it literally, you know, it's like those scenes from like space, you know, and the little windshield cracks and then the whole fucking thing explodes. Kind of the same thing. Takes one small little micro fracture, right? Expanded instantly, crushing them immediately. So with that said, we do need risk takers, right? But we you know, it does need to be pointed out, you know, that risk takers shouldn't be taking you know, it's like that bear guy, you know, that guy that was all like, you know, he's the bear dude, right? Then he ends up getting killed by a bear, and he brings a woman out to this island where there's bears everywhere, and he's pretending like he knows how to control a bear, and he gets her killed, he gets himself killed. There's a difference between a con man and an explorer. You know what I mean? Did Hemingway, you know, bring along like a 19-year-old Robin style ward, get his ass killed in a fucking in like World War? Didn't Hemingway like do a bunch of like he was in all the wars? Get some guy killed, it's like following him around. Bully, follow me. It's false equivalence. No, there's a difference between a guy that's pushing the boundaries and a guy that's like the Tiger King is another example, right? Of one of these con men who think they're innovators, think they're explorers, get somebody mangled, you know, amongst other things. Panda Man, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone else. It's not a false equivalency. I'm just saying that there's a difference between explorers and con men. And I think this guy was a little bit of both, you know, because it's not like he just went out there and he just wings it, right? Because there was that guy who killed himself with his own rocket. He just winged it. He had his own version of math. It was a disaster. He blew himself up in his own rocket. I'm just saying it was a little bit of both, right? This disruptor style mentality, because it's the same thing that's getting people killed. Elon Musk is getting people killed with his automatic driving feature that has all kinds of problems. He's beta testing this feature on human beings. It's not ready. The cars are incapable of driving themselves. And, you got to keep your hands on the wheels, except people can trick it easily. Right? It takes nothing to trick it, and then all of a sudden you got jackasses sitting in the back seat. Anyway.
Understood Stockton Rush's mission and OceanGate's mission was to explore uncharted waters and uncharted and undiscovered areas of the ocean. In fact, adventure tourism, he said, was not the goal. It was a means to an end in order to fund the research that they wanted to do, and he believed in that vision. But I did ask him if he would have gotten on that submersible, the Titan, and gone down to the depths of the Titanic. And he said, as someone with an engineering background and who worked on this development, he said he just would not have been comfortable. Jake?
Veronica Miracle in Everett, Washington. Thanks so much.
I think her last name
joining
is
us
Miracle.
now to discuss is journalist David Pogue. He went out with OceanGate last year.
Jake Tapper's mic is higher than everyone else's.
For a story on CBS. David, we're talking now about the Coast Guard theory that there was a catastrophic implosion. You were on the vessel. Do you have any?
Davey, so you don't have any moral issue with billionaires beta testing features like assisted driving. Here, I'll strongman your argument. Beta testing features like assisted driving on the public. These are not finished products. Don't you dare say assisted driving is a finished product. That shit is buggy. That is not finished software. That is not ready to go. He's beta test. You have to admit that there are moral implications. Yeah, I said steel man. I said strong man. God damn it, Panda Man. I swear to God, you're the derail master. But no, man. There are moral issues, okay? Because we're not talking about beta testing a coffee machine. We're talking about beta testing a 1-ton, 80-mile-an-hour deadly vehicle that can absolutely does get people killed. Okay, so this is not the same, man. There's moral implications here.
Any idea what might have happened to cause?
But Chem Goblin, here's the thing. They're not given the full truth. You know, you watch a commercial from Tesla about what that auto-assisted driving feature can do. It's not true. It's not true. So they think they know what they're using. They think they know what the capabilities of the machine are. It's not true. It's best case scenario. And when you engage the feature, you have to agree to a EULA that removes all your fucking rights, right? You're not allowed to sue us if you kill yourself using this feature. Bullshit, right? It's immoral to beta test these kind of features, and that's what he was trying to do with this sub. It had one fucking button and a goddamn video game controller that I actually own. I bought it at Staples. Right? He wanted it to go up and down automatically. No, there are moral implications for testing these kind of things on the public.
Caused that catastrophic implosion?
I
got all of it,
know
Ken
that
Goblin. Stick around.
The turning media narrative is that Rush was this crazy guy going off half-cocked. Please remember that he designed this one-of-a-kind carbon fiber submersible with consultation from NASA and Boeing. There were tests, there were
NASA
prototypes.
and Boeing are like,
I
"Ooh,
walked
shut the
around
fuck
in his
up."
workshop with him, and he showed me some of the previous carbon fiber
This was with the reporter that went in the vessel, by the way.
experiments that he had refined and improved until the carbon fiber was 5 inches thick, unbroken by any holes or wires or anything, any screws. However,
I
this
bought it at
submersible
Staples.
had titanium end caps and a 9-inch thick plexiglass porthole. You have 3 different materials, whereas all existing Titanic depth submersibles are just spheres made of titanium alloy.
Yeah, and there's
One
a good
material.
look at this, folks.
And the
There's a good goddamn reason for this. Okay, there's a good goddamn reason why you don't make it out of carbon fiber. You make the whole thing out of like one solid piece.
Are just spheres made of titanium.
So there's this goddamn magic button that's literally the only button on the vessel.
Titanium alloy, one material. And the risk here is that through
Right. So he sits there. I mean, look at this jank ass shit. This honestly, it's a little jank, dude. He's got some like Dell monitors hooked up with like some standard consumer level keyboard. And there's the goddamn Logitech controller right there. And he's got another like Dell monitor with the main monitor that apparently this splits into 4 categories because there's like 4 cameras on the vessel. So he turns around and pilots it. It looks incredibly uncomfortable.
repeated
5.
descent and rise.
5 people
the
went down there.
difference in their density, the difference in the amount they heat up and cool down during those things might have introduced some little crack, some little gap. And remember, as we know, at those pressures, if a molecule of water gets in,
It's over, dude.
Instantly. I know it's no great comfort to the families and spouses, but they did die instantaneously. They were not even aware that anything was wrong.
So you went on the sub, but once you were just 37 feet underwater, your trip was aborted. What was it like?
He designed it to fit more because most of these vessels fit 3 people max, usually 2 people. And they usually send down 2 vessels in case one of them fails. There's a bunch of things this guy just wanted to ignore and rush it to market. Get this, folks. These 4 people paid $150,000 each to be on this vessel.
Like being inside the sub? Was it cramped? Was it uncomfortable? Was it exciting? What was?
I mean, there it is right there. There's some kind of
inside the
modification
sub? Was it cramped?
to the
was it
joysticks.
uncomfortable?
He added like some Madonna nipples to the joysticks, really, really pointy joysticks, kind of some boomer fucking modification. Can't handle normal PS3 joysticks. Come on, man. What, you never played Ratchet and Clank? Get over it.
Was it exciting?
But yeah, he's got Madonna tits on the goddamn thing. Jesus Christ, man. And these guys got ripped apart, you know, because this guy was trying to disrupt a market and make a profit, right?
Exciting. What was it like?
Imagine a tubular minivan without seats. That's what it's like. You're sitting on the floor. There's 4 people alternating right, left with their legs in parallel, and then Stockton, the pilot, sits with his back against the back, driving the thing. And it's very modern looking, very cool lighting.
Jesus Christ, look at that. Holy shit.
Music system. It's quite a departure from the complicated beeping, pinging submersibles of old. And, you know, everyone says, you know, Stockton Rush, you fool. But he said to me, yes, when I designed this with carbon fiber, everybody said I was an idiot. They said I was nuts, was his word. And then his famous line was, But when you think outside the box, everybody who's inside the box thinks you're crazy.
Yeah, wow. Sounds really inspirational. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't want to shit on this mentality, you know what I mean? I like, you know, Davey is not wrong to come to the defense of entrepreneurs and risk takers. The problem is that he you know, was told no, and he was like, I know better. I have more money. He didn't, but he wasn't like that, like completely. Like I said, he didn't make up his own science or anything. But he, you know, and well, I guess he didn't make up his own science, but I guess he thought he could, I don't know, invest enough money into some kind of carbon fiber manufacturing technique that would, you know, create some kind of innovation, you know, but he didn't test this enough, man. He didn't even do 100. He didn't, like, you got to at least submerge this thing to the Titanic depth and, you know, and bring it up and down like 100 times and see what happens, right? And see what the fuck happens. He didn't even do that. He did that, you know, he did it a couple times and then he started selling tickets. Like, whoa, dude. You know, which is exactly what Bezos and Musk did. You know, shot up fucking. Could you imagine if William Shatner got blown to pieces on the fucking Amazon Basics rocket? The Amazon, was it the Virgin one that was a penis? No, it was the Amazon Basics one that looked like an actual penis.
So you also wrote in your piece for CBS about how the sub was lost for a few hours last year when you were there. You said the ship was able to send short texts to the sub, but it didn't know where the sub was underwater. And I wonder if, looking back now, are you sure that Ocean Gate, are you sure that Stockton Rush were giving you the whole story?
I can't read his mind, but I will say.
And you want to talk about false equivalence here? You're over here defending, you know, hubris and stupidity. Did William Wright, you know, when he fucked himself up, or whoever fucked himself up, or Orville Wright? Okay, so they got an observer killed. But I mean, come on, there's a difference here. There is a fucking difference here. You know, between, you know, people dying on the edge of exploration, trying to figure out new technology, and thinking you got it cracked, the first go round, barely doing any testing, and then started selling tickets like you're a carnival barker. You know, there's a difference here. Thank you, Attack on Coffee. Goddamn, thank you. Finally, someone fucking gets it. Nothing but contrarians in the chat. I'm not trying to shit on the entrepreneurial spirit. I respect it greatly. And of course, it's one of the things that makes humans so great. But that is not this. This is hubris. This isn't disruption. This is disaster. Got it.
I know for a fact that there are glitches and malfunctions and weather delays in every single one of these submersibles. The ones that James Cameron.
Yeah, there's like all
down,
kinds of problems,
those
dude.
had glitches and malfunctions.
This
and
is
were
not
canceled.
ready
the
to go
ones
tech.
Paul uses. It is. These things
You
are
know.
one-offs, right? They're custom built. There wasn't a 1.0 and this is 2.0. There's no spare. There's one of it. So yeah, things get jerry-rigged and things get fixed on the fly, but they all do this. And I gotta believe that for the people who sign up for this, these are the kinds of people who go climb Mount Everest or swim with the sharks.
Not the 19-year-old boy,
Blue
dude.
Origin rockets. It is the danger that makes it appealing to them.
Well, speaking of signing up for it, you noted in your piece that you signed a waiver that mentioned death, possible death, as a risk multiple times. You signed this before getting in the sub. Did you seriously consider this?
So what do we got? A year and a half before we see the Netflix movie? Half a year? They could crank one out in 3 months probably. I'll give it a year. That's being generous. I give it a year before we see the Netflix movie.
Something could go catastrophically wrong, as happened this time.
No, Attack on Coffee, bro.
I mean, emotionally, I
It's-
was terrified. I didn't sleep the night before.
He tried to do it on
But
the cheap. He didn't
intellectually,
test
all
it
the
enough.
boxes were checked. You know, I had a tour of this thing. I saw the redundant air systems,
Right.
the redundant ballast systems, the redundant computer.
Yeah, so I mean, this is interesting, but though I mean, like he, you know, it's an interesting mix of hubris and like I'm not going to reinvent science. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to sit here and you know, but he, like I said, he kind of thought he could out innovate it. You know, he could like you know crack this code, make it consumer level, you know, somewhat more consumer level instead of making it out of exotic metals and all this, like you know, make it out of carbon fiber with a little bit of titanium and a big O viewport, of course. But he didn't test it enough, and then he started selling tickets, like you know, because he wanted to be like you know the big boys. He wanted to be like Jeff and Elon. You know, well they shot up William Shatner up in there, man, and look, he came down safe. You know, it's hubris.
Tour of this thing. I saw the redundant air systems, the redundant ballast systems, the redundant computer systems. I saw what a safety culture they have in that outfit. They do checklists and briefings and inspections before and after every dive. And this is the key. At that time, the sub had made 20 uneventful dives to Titanic depths and back. And that's what reassured me. But of course, now in hindsight, I see that repeated rise and fall may have been its downside.
Well, yeah, and look, sure, they had fucking checklists, right? But what they weren't doing was completely disassembling it, because this is the kind of hard work that business guys are like, oh, do we really need to do this? I don't know. Do we need seatbelts in the cars? I don't know. You know, rush it through. Come on, get it done, get it done, get it done. I got to meet my quarterlies, right? But no, that was something that's what the you know scientists do. They send something down, send it back up, rip it apart every bolt, and they you know test every single thing. Where's the faults, right? And this guy thought he could do it on the cheap, man. So right here, this chart is very very helpful, and this is actually really quite shocking. Woo, that's loud. Wake up, man. Wake up. There we go. But no, this is shocking because look, man, this vessel that he was trying to do on the cheap was going way deeper than like the Ohio class submarine. I was like, what? No fucking way. You know, this because you think, you know, a military grade submarine, that thing should be able to like go some distance. No, 1,000 feet. Max depth is, they recommend 800, but they've pushed it to 1,500. Before the holes become compromised. So that's shocking. This thing was supposed to go 1,200 over 1,200 feet, right? Just think about the pressure. Because I was thinking, man, they can't be that deep. It ain't that bad, is it? No, it's deep as shit. It's super deep. It's instantly implode deep. And this guy was playing with people's lives, selling tickets to go see a goddamn wreck. It's unbelievable. The Titanic takes 5 more people. So someone's already got a goddamn mock-up. They left the blood part out, thank goodness. But just kind of gives you an example. I mean, it was just boom. You know, one micro flaw expands across the whole vessel, ruining the integrity of everything. Kaputski. One more industry disrupted. The quotes that are being mined by you know already are legendary. And I suspect we're going to get more as more people are watching more of the promotional material and whatnot. I suspect internet historians probably working on a video for this subject. But man, some of these quotes are bananas.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And you know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium. There's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did. It's
Oh, and I love the TikTok. Boy, I'm so glad they do that. Max volume, isn't that great? So that's frightening. That's frightening. And it wasn't, you know, it's like it was a rule that he was breaking. It wasn't you know, how much work did he honestly do, like digging into the science of it, right? And why carbon fiber, how much was tested, right? Maybe it wasn't tested that much. Maybe he thought he had an opportunity here. But the language is interesting, real quick. Let me just rewind this one more time.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break."
Right. Okay. So that's one thing. But no, this is what I wanted to hear again.
And you know, I've broken some rules to make
I've broken some rules.
this. I think I've broken them with logic and.
I think I've broken them with logic and
Good engineering behind.
good engineering behind me. Right? He's not an engineer, he's not a scientist, he's a rich guy.
I mean, the carbon fiber and titanium. There's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did. It's
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, the new face of hubris. The new face of hubris. Oh, I do it. Is this working, by the way? Let's see here. Hey, it's working. Nice. Water. Water. Is it going through? Oh, I gotta fix that. All right. All right. We'll fix that later. Okay. CEO of OceanGate, which is operating the missing Titanic tour submarine, explains that the company didn't want to hire any experienced 50-year-old white guys because they weren't "quote unquote" inspirational. Oof. Okay, so like I said, I mean, we're going to be seeing a lot more of these in the next weeks out. This guy is just, you know, gold nugget after gold nugget of we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. These nerds don't know what they're talking about. They need a, you know, slick motherfucker like me to come in with big fat pockets, and we're going to do it upright. Because I know what I'm doing. Because I don't know what business he made his money in, but you know, it's like, I know how to take a dime and turn it into $1, so I could easily fix this one. I can just come on in and spend some money. You know, it's exactly what Elon is doing with Twitter, where he's like, he's losing all this money, and he's going to have to reverse all these policies if he wants to save it. You know, it wasn't some liberal cabal. It was them trying to make fucking money. All right, but anyway, this quote is amazing.
Listen to what he talks about. The CEO talks about hiring people.
Yes, I mean, when I started the business, one of the things you'll find, there are other sub-operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology, but a 25-year-old, you know, who's a sub-pilot.
Oof, oof, oof. There she is. So this must have been one of the prototypes. And that is not the Logitech controller. That's like a wireless Xbox 360 controller or something with the nipples. Ooh, oof. Yeah. Yikes. I'm going to quote this tweet I saw earlier about the Titanic that I agree with the sole reason that I don't think the Titanic should be a tourist attraction. Thinking about 1982 in an interview last few months ago, the interviewer asked the old woman the ship should be raised. She was like, well, it's my father's grave and I can still hear the screams, so no. Yeah, we shouldn't. The ridiculous amount of money and engineering required to bring the ship back up would be just unbelievable. What an incredible waste of time. And what for? Why? What, to mine it for antiques and souvenirs? I don't even understand. But God, this is embarrassing. Yikes. Yeah, leave them alone.
Pilot or a platform operator, one of our techs, can be inspirational. And so we've really tried to get very intelligent, motivated, younger individuals involved, because we're doing things that are completely new. We're taking approaches that are used largely in the aerospace industry, is related to safety and some of the preponderance of checklists, things we do for risk assessments and things like that that are more aviation related than ocean related. And we can train people to do that. We can train someone to pilot the sub. We use a game controller, so anybody can drive the sub.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of making the controls easy to use and accessible, there's nothing wrong with that, even if it's a complicated scientific tool. But yikes, man, just yikes. Oof. Just a big fat oof there. And look, the reason why you use carbon fiber in aerospace is so I think the reason is tension, right? But when you're underwater, you're not worried about tension as much as you're worried about pressure. So it's a material for a different purpose. It's shocking it lasted as long as it did. It's kind of a shame that they saw such early success, and instead of stress testing it and really, putting it through its paces, they dipped it in a few times. They say, well, okay, slapped their hands together, shook their hands, and okay, all right, we did it, boys. Another industry disrupted, right? All right, crack the old Chambly. Let's get it going. All right, started selling $150,000 tickets to go see a fucking wreck. And not even like see the whole thing. Like, you don't get out of the fucking boat and, or out of the sub and get to like, hang out on the deck of the Titanic. You're like looking through a shitty ass little hole. Like, and it's like it's shitty. It's shitty. It's like going to Alcatraz. Apparently, like 10 years ago, some bazillionaire rich couple took one of these scientific vessels down there and got married, quote unquote, on the deck of the Titanic. So it's actually, it's not the beginning of tourism even with that, right? But it's like he was trying to make it for the wealthy, not just the ultra hyper wealthy like James Cameron, but just like, for your regular average millionaire, owns a car dealership or something kind of guy, right? Oh, I got to see the Titanic. I went in the sub. Yeah, me and the wife took my wife down there. It cost me $300,000. It was amazing. Those guys.
David Marquette, as a retired...
Got a picture with him and Trump on the wall, right? Because he went to some $1,000 a plate dinner that Trump was at, and he got to shake his hand and got a little picture. Those kind of guys.
U.S. Navy submarine captain and best-selling author of Turn the Ship Around.
News Nation, by the way, milked the shit out of this sub. Holy shit. News Nation had a fucking timer in the corner. This is how much hours of oxygen is left. And I mean, I swear to God, I was getting videos every hour on the hour. Sub this, sub that, sub. I mean, hours and hours and hours of content. These guys milked the sub to death. They caused the implosion.
So, David, your reaction to this new report that the Navy heard the implosion days ago?
I guess it's possible.
That's so funny because he's like, I'm not a Navy guy. I don't fucking know. He had no idea. He hadn't even heard of the story yet. And she's like, what do you think about this?
So, David, your reaction to this new report that the Navy heard the implosion days ago?
I guess it's possible. I don't know anything about it.
So what are your main questions following that afternoon press conference with the U.S. Coast Guard?
Yeah, well, I think it confirms our most likely scenario, which is as the submarine was descending toward the Titanic in the first hour and 45 minutes of its journey, some minute flaw, could have been a minute flaw, resulted in the tremendous pressure, causing an immediate and instantaneous collapse of the pressure vessel and the immediate death of all the people on board. And I think this was always the most likely scenario. So the search was in vain.
So sad.
And unfortunately, we were not able to recover them alive.
It wasn't totally in vain because it's if anything, it's a good test to see, okay, what the turnaround time is, if this happens again. But yeah, they were dead. The seemingly the moment communication was lost, that was the moment of implosion.
What impact, if any, do you think this will have on the future of missions like these?
Well, Panda Man, Panda Man over here criticizing the coverage. I gotta say, the 24/7 like coverage of Trump in the last like 6 months or whatever, however long, it seems like forever, right? Just election, Trump, presidential shit. Well, and also, no offense, of course, because I'm going to be covering it as well, but Ukraine as well. There's been a lot of fatigue. I think the news and the public is starving for any other subject to talk about. With that said, I do agree that the mainstream media, with all of its resources, could find a million other subjects far more interesting to talk about than Trump. But that doesn't make as much money, does it? Right? So the reason why the media is covering this, because it's the classic, kid fell down the well story, and they're dying to talk about anything else other than the presidential election. I think that's why we're seeing such insane coverage. Yeah, Panda Man. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, but I'm just explaining to you what I think is the logic behind why we're seeing such incredible coverage. Is that people are just dying for something else to talk about,
Yeah, well, there'll certainly be a damping impact on the future of tourism to the bottom of the ocean. But in the long run, I hope that we learn things, and I hope it becomes beneficial. I'm of two minds. One, I admire the innovation and the moving fast and the experimentation and the sense of exploration and really pushing things on the edge. As a race, we've benefited from the explorers who've risked and sometimes lost their lives. But at the same time, I got the sense, looking at the way the company talked about what they did and their operational rhythm, that they were applying Silicon Valley innovative rules of fail fast, which are maybe applicable if you're writing software to rent scooters, but Mother Nature is not like that. And if you don't follow all the rules, she's going to get you. And we've learned from over 100 years of operating submarines at sea, including losing some, and we go to sea for 60, 90 days at a time.
Yeah, these guys kind of know what they're doing.
Ways of operating submarines that come about safely, and certain ways that you don't.
Yeah, these 50-year-old boring gray guys that aren't inspirational. Yeah, I want to use carbon fiber. It's much cheaper. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Oh, you're not inspiring. What a Debbie Downer. Oh my God. What do you mean I can't do it? Right? That kind of attitude.
For one is a humility and a constant.
-5, my performance, -5. You didn't like my my little voice. Oh, guys. Real time pleasure index. Tell me how much pleasure or displeasure you're feeling right now. -5 people. Oh, that's really distasteful. But yes, 5 people did die.
Constant chronic unease with the sense that the ocean is pressing on the ship.
God damn, man. I mean, God damn. They just can't even, Oh my God, dude. At least it was instant.
And if you let down your guard, it's going to get you.
Yeah, you bet.
Do you think there was any chance the crew may have been able to survive? It sounds like from your previous statements that answer would be no.
Based on what happened, the crew had 0.0% control over the situation. They had 0.0% ability to impact.
Nobody's calling it Ocean. The name of the company is Ocean Gate. Or yeah, you see, I think it's Ocean Gate. I think that's the name of the company. It's not like Watergate. No, it's not a scandal. It is a scandal. Yeah. It's classic misunderstanding from a person who, doesn't, English is not their first language. That's so funny.
Impact the outcome of the situation.
Yeah, keep it that way. Attack on coffee.
It doesn't appear that, for example, that they drove accidentally into the Titanic. I think the most likely scenario is there was something wrong with the vessel when they left the mothership. There was a minute flaw. There was a minute crack. There was a fitting that just wasn't connected just quite right, or there was a bolt that was made of the wrong material, or something minute that wasn't detected, and that flaw was there at the start, and it was just a matter of time. And when they reached the right depth, it gave way, and it was over for them.
What was your takeaway from this entire incident and the world watching this week?
Yeah, there was a couple interesting things from my perspective. Number one is my sense is that the company was trying to have their cake and eat it too. They were saying, look, we're not going to play by all the normal rules. We're more innovative, faster, maybe even smarter than the rest of you. But when they got in trouble, they wanted everyone to come to their assistance. And I think there's an implicit
Davey, I don't think you would argue with this
contract there, which is, hey, you play by the rules. We're going to come help. We're going to roll out the cavalry for you. You choose not to. That's your decision. But don't expect us to show up when you get in trouble.
Yeah, it's called Ocean Gate. I mean, I get that as well, but I mean, it's also like I said, it's kind of a good opportunity to test some of this stuff out, right? Because like imagine if they were alive, right? The power, like they were heading down. Power went out and they just like floated to the bottom, right? Like right next to the Titanic or something, right? And do we have a device that can go all the way down there, pick it up, because there was like one device coming like that had just gotten there when we heard this news from France or something that had the capabilities technically maybe to pick it up and take it back up there. But yeah, and in principle, he's right. Like, you want to be, Howard Hughes over here and, invent the Enola Gay. You're kind of putting your life in your own hands there a little bit, understandably.
And so I think that's something we need to think about. And the other thing was, I was really surprised by the attention. And
this is why I wanted to show this video specifically, because this guy is saying something, and credit to News Nation and this guy specifically for saying this on national TV.
That this got, and the response was heroic. 4 countries, multiple agencies, commercial, and it was really heartwarming and inspiring. And I think about some of the other accidents that happened, and I say, well, why didn't 53 Indonesian submarines 2 years ago, or 8 people were lost on Mount Everest last month climbing the...
Okay, straight up, no, I'm going to have to disagree, micro disagreement here with the Mount Everest shit. I agree with everything else that he says, but micro disagreement here. Nah, dude, you get your ass up there, you're fucked. No rescue team should go out to Mount Everest to save your ass. There's a problem. There's way too much of a problem with rich fuckers getting up there. There's a line. Could you imagine? You spend tens of thousands of dollars gearing up. You train, right? You get it. You do it, right? Sometimes you don't have to train that much, right? Because you get a nice Sherpa to do everything for you, right? So you got lots of oxygen, right? So it's really just kind of a healthy hike for you. You get up there and there's a line. You have to wait in line like you're at the bank to take your little selfie at the top of Mount Everest to put on your social media. We got to stop the Mount Everest tourism, man. This shit is disgusting. It's a stain on humanity. Makes humanity look like a bunch of vain jackasses. You know what I mean? Makes us look like a bunch of vain jackasses. It really does. The Mount Everest shit is really disgusting to me. And he's all like, we should go up. We should have saved him. Nah, fuck him.
Climbing it, or not a couple hundred migrants.
So that's what I'm talking about, is that, we just had a couple hundred, but just a couple weeks ago, incredibly tragic. I'm going to be talking about it this Saturday. A couple hundred migrants on just an overcrowded boat. It's just the most tragic thing you've ever seen in your life. The whole fucking boat tipped over. 100 people, hundreds of people dying. Where was the outcry? It was barely a blurb in the news.
First lost in a ship. And it makes me wonder, like, why do certain things gather so much attention and our resources?
Okay, we know why.
And our energy and our money. and other
We know
things seem
why.
to pass by, and I don't have an answer.
Come on, are you joking? You don't have an answer. Come on, what does it take? Brass balls to say this shit? You got to. Is the news underground the only place that keeps it real to really talk about it? It's it's the fact that some rich guy's getting his comeuppance, and he just so happened to be cocky as hell, talking about how he was going to disrupt everything, and he ends up getting himself killed and innocent people killed as well. It's about the most perfect, like, salacious news story that we've heard since the disappearance of the Malaysia flight, right? So come on, what, you don't know? Quit being coy there, Dilbert. he looks like Scott Adams. That's a big insult though, because he's much more. I'm sure he's cool. He's way cooler than Scott Adams. He's got the vibe though.
To that.
Yeah. So anyway, props to News Nation for playing that and letting him make that comment about the migrants. Okay, yeah. All right, we don't need to do this one because he just goes over how these people were just shredded. They were killed instantly. And I mean, honestly, they were like literally ripped asunder. I don't want to get too graphic here, but they were ripped apart, like not even exaggerating. So I'm sure you were asking yourself, well, what does David Cameron have to think about all this, right? Your boys got you covered. We got DC on the line. Let's go to it. ABC special news report, exclusive to the News Underground. He did this for me. We talked earlier. So let me just show you this here. This is great. Man, he's rich. Man, what did he just got back, what, skydiving? What is he wearing? Is what I asked him in this interview. So make sure you stick around. So yeah, David, what do you think about the situation?
Well, I've been down there many times. I know the wreck site very well, as does my friend Bob Ballard. I've made 33 dives. I actually calculated that I've spent more time on the ship than the captain did back in the day. And of course, as a submersible designer myself, I designed and built a sub to go to the deepest place in the ocean, 3 times deeper than Titanic. So I understand the engineering problems associated with building this type of vehicle and all the safety protocols that you have to go through. And I think that what Bob said, because I was watching, is absolutely critical for people to really get the take-home message from this, from our effort here, is deep submergence diving is a mature art. From the early 60s, where there were a few accidents, nobody was killed in the deep submergence, until now, is more time than between Kitty Hawk and the flight of the first 747. So if we haven't improved over that period of time, we have improved drastically over that period of time, and the certification protocols that all other deep submergence vehicles.
I mean, this is so embarrassing. Looking at this keyboard that he's using, it's the same kind of keyboard I would use if I was like programming a conference room computer or something, right? It's one of those keyboards that has the mouse and the mouse click on there. This is not equipment that you would want to put into your. This is like some generic Bluetooth consumer level wireless keyboard. It's not something you'd want to put into your life, into the hands of this, man. It's unbelievable.
Vehicles, except this one, that carry passengers, especially paying passengers, all over the world in tropical waters, deep coral reefs, other wreck sites, and so on. The safety record is the gold standard. Absolutely. Not only no fatalities, but no major incidents requiring all of these assets to converge to a site. Of course, that's the nightmare that we've all lived with, since all of us entered this field of deep exploration. We live with it in the back of our minds. But because implosion, as Bob described it, such a violent event, is first and foremost in our minds. The pressure boundary, which is what they call the hull of the sub, that the people go inside, is obviously first and foremost in our minds as engineers. And we spend so much time and energy on that. And we use all the computerized tools available today, finite element analysis. We worked on our sphere for our deep vehicle that went to the Challenger Deep. for over 3 years just in the computer.
Yeah.
Before we even made the thing, and then of course we pressure tested it over and over and over.
Yeah, and I bet you he did more than 20 or 30 dives before he started climbing in the thing himself. You know what I mean?
And so on.
Maybe not. I don't know.
So, this is a mature art, and many people in the community were very concerned about this sub, and a number of the top players in the deep submergence engineering community even wrote letters to the company saying that what they were doing was too experimental to carry passengers and that needed to be certified and so on. So I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of his ship, and yet he steamed at full speed into an ice field on a moonless night, and many people died as a result. And for a very similar tragedy where warnings went unheeded to take place at the same exact site, with all the diving that's going on all around the world.
Yeah, the irony.
I think it's just astonishing. It's really quite surreal. And of course, P.H. Nargeolet, the French legendary submersible dive pilot, a friend of mine. It's a very small community.
Of course he is.
PH for 25 years.
His name is PH? Okay.
For him to have died tragically in this way is almost impossible for me to process.
Oh, I must have been hearing it wrong. He was one of the victims. Yeah, wow. There you go, folks. That, some left us out. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Public Paul Limited. I brought that up at the beginning. It's pretty disgusting. It's perfectly okay to do what I did, because of course I did it, and I get an exception because I'm special. But it's perfectly okay to do what I did, which is criticize this man for the obvious mistakes, the clear hubris. But there's no need to be like, yeah, that's what you get for being a rich asshole. Like, I don't see how helpful that really is. It doesn't seem very helpful. But anyway, there you go. That's James Cameron. I almost called him David Cameron for some reason. That's James Cameron's opinions on the situation. Most people are pretty shocked, and I think what we're going to hear the scathing review of just how bad of an idea this was, how underbaked, how under-tested this idea was. I think we're going to be hearing about that in the next coming months. Obviously, people don't want to immediately come out and say this guy had a bad idea and had too much money and not enough sense. Obviously, they're not going to want to do that. It's a little too early for that, so understandable. But I think in the next couple months, we're going to hear more news. If there's something really relevant to bring up, maybe I'll do a follow-up on the story. But unfortunately, this seems like kind of a one-and-done Bubble Boy style story, right? Of there was a little bit of hope. It was unfounded. They died pretty much instantly. Thankfully, they did not suffer. They did not slowly suffocate to death, right? So there is that consolation, of course. My sympathy, family and friends. Absolutely atrocious, terrible disaster. And, let's try to do better. Let's try to do better in this industry. And as James Cameron pointed out, like, this guy was kind of an anomaly. And if you dig into the story, you'll see there's a, like he said, it's a old art or something. It's a mature art. There's a group of people that know what they're doing on this, and he tried to disrupt that, and he was wrong. The science was right. Or at the very least, maybe there is something to carbon fiber. It just needs to be tested differently. That could be it, maybe. Anyway, thank you, YouTube.